The scientific worldview that we may now take for granted is extremely recent, only at best 4 centuries old, and for the vast majority of time, magical thinking has been the only available way of thinking, and for too many it still is. Magical thinking can mean that 1. Our actions or thoughts can cause events to occur without any logical connection. Or it can mean 2. Animism, the belief that objects are alive and can act and think. There are some differences between magical thinking and superstitions, as French and Stone define them. One difference is that magic requires intent, while superstitions do not. Such magical intent doesn't have to mean casting a spell, as merely wishing something is enough. Typical superstitions involve events like walking under a ladder, or objects like a supposedly lucky rabbit's foot. These things are thought to influence future events or a person's luck. This luck is of course not part of the scientific worldview, but according to non-scientific worldviews, it is some kind of magical attribute or resource people are believed to have. Hi, my name is Jouni Vilkka, and this video is part of my series on Anomalistic Psychology, mostly based on the book by French and Stone I keep mentioning. If you're interested in psychology and the paranormal, then welcome to my channel, TFF, Teacher from Finland. Don't forget to subscribe and click the thumbs up button. French and Stone suggest that superstitious rituals might actually have some beneficial effects on people performing them by boosting their confidence or helping them calm down, whereas they see no realistic means by which magic could work. This seems a bit odd to me. I find the distinction between superstition and magic to be questionable, and see the two as the same thing myself. It is especially difficult to see the difference between superstitious ritual and a magical ritual. Some practitioners of magic, with a K, in fact see magic as not the manipulation of the paranormal, but of the psychological. It would make sense that such magic could actually have some measurable effect, just like other superstitious behaviors may have. This is of course mere speculation, as I don't think this has actually been experimentally tested. If you know of any such experiments, please let me know in the comments below. Leaving aside the question of magical practice, at least for now, magical thinking is common among children. For example, many young children believe in the efficacy of wishes. In some cultures, for example in early modern Europe, it was also thought that merely wishing bad things to happen might be enough to cause them to occur. That is why just glaring at someone angrily may have led to accusations of witchcraft. Is this naive thinking simply a remnant from childhood, these days usually replaced by education based on science? As children learn about the world, and even about sleight of hand, conjuring and magic tricks, their belief in actual magic declines. The role of the parents in this seems odd to me, because typically they actually teach their children to believe in magical creatures like the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus, even though they know the children will eventually realize these were lies. It is also common to teach children to blow out the candles on a birthday cake and make a wish, thus teaching them this form of magical thinking. Parents don't usually try to teach skepticism or critical thinking, and in fact blatantly lie to their children. To me, This seems like a very questionable parenting tactic. The famous developmental psychologist Jean Piaget thought that children would develop the ability of formal thought at around age 12. This would mean learning evidence-based, science-like thinking, and would lead to discarding magical thinking. This doesn't seem to be the case, because younger children can already distinguish between magical and realistic thinking, and a lot of adults still apply magical thinking and also believe in magical entities. For example, astrology, witchcraft, ESP, and many other such ideas are essentially magical. Piaget did point out that it is possible for adults to regress to magical thinking when suffering enough from anxiety and fear. Being unable to control the outcomes of events could thus lead to weird beliefs that help coping with the situation. Many superstitious beliefs are cultural, and it seems to me that such beliefs do not require much in the way of a psychological explanation. Going against tradition and surrounding culture is difficult and potentially carries a heavy cost. It is only when the falseness of those beliefs becomes very apparent and the cost of denouncing them relatively cheap that most people will discard them. Some superstitious beliefs are shared by a group. A sporting team might have some shared rituals or songs that they half-jokingly perform before matches, for example. There are also idiosyncratic superstitious beliefs. You might have a pair of lucky socks that you wear for exams, for example. You probably wouldn't even tell others about it, and you might not even take it completely seriously yourself. I have an idiosyncratic ritual myself that I don't actually believe to have any effect. Still, when I have to roll 2 ordinary dice, and it would be a good thing to roll a high value, I like to first place the dice, the 6 sides up next to each other, and then shake and throw them. I realize this is foolish, but I still do it, as I have been doing for decades now. When I mentioned this during a university course, another student tried to provide a justification for my ritual, even appealing to quantum mechanics. It was, of course, nonsense, but shows how easily some people try to come up with rationalizations for behavior, even behaviors of other people, when there isn't even any evidence that the behavior has an effect in the real world. The rational, scientific way of thinking would be to first ascertain that there is a phenomenon that requires an explanation, such as rolling the dice the way I do, resulting in unusually good rolls on average, and only then looking for a cause for this phenomenon. Clearly, this very basic requirement of rationality does not come naturally to everyone, and that is something that needs to be explained, and what Anomalistic Psychology is trying to explain. While discussing the connections between paranormal beliefs in childhood and adulthood, French and Stone also explained the psychodynamic function hypothesis, PFH for short. It is based on the idea that paranormal beliefs are attempts to bring a sense of control to deal with helplessness and insecurity resulting from childhood trauma. This trauma can be caused by some form of abuse. There are at least 3 lines of evidence supporting this. 1. Victims of childhood abuse have an elevated need for a sense of control over life events, which the belief in paranormal provides. 2. Childhood abuse is linked to fantasy proneness in adulthood. 3. Fantasy proneness in adulthood is linked to paranormal belief. Not everyone who suffers some form of abuse in their childhood develops paranormal beliefs, but if they happen to be fantasy prone, the likelihood increases significantly. The belief does not arise from the trauma directly, but only through a paranormal experience, which is made more likely by fantasy proneness, as it makes interpreting an experience as paranormal more likely. While there is evidence for this mechanism, the link between paranormal belief and a sense of control seems weak. French and Stone suggest that paranormal beliefs, with the exception of basic superstitions, might not so much provide a means to control events as they provide a way of understanding and accepting the unpleasant events of life. Some of the ways our brains function may also be responsible for mistakenly forming weird beliefs. That will be discussed in my next video. Bye for now. If you wish to support my channel, please click thumbs up, subscribe and share my videos. Any comments on the videos would also be welcome.